Hey guys, this is Paul from Paul's Kart. I just wanted to make a video about the new valve guides I have. I've shown them in another video. Actually, I don't think I've ever shown them in a video before, so that's kind of, the whole reason I'm going to make this video. As you guys know, this is the $399 head. The $399 head does come with the valves, springs, billet retainers, keeper locks, all that stuff. This head has really, proved itself all around. Just from the testing we had done when we created it, along with the camshaft and the carburetor that goes along with it on the site. It's called the Trinity. This head is just amazing. Everything about it, the way it's designed, valve seat angles, the porting that's done, through thousands of hours worth of just development on the flow bench. This thing is the truth. And what I wanted to show you guys is the valve guides. To the untrained eye, they just might look like standard bronze guides. Maybe you guys don't really know what bronze guides look like. But what's different about these bronze guides is that they have a head, and these spring pockets have been cut, and you could see where the guide boss is flush against the head of the guide. So what that does is that locates the inner coil spring for, like, say, the dual coil springs on the guide, which is a great feature. But the main reason we had those guides built, made for us, is because that head, because it's wider and sits on top of the boss, will prevent the valve guide from falling through. So what holds those guides in is just an interference fit. They're basically press fit in. So when the head gets hot, the guide sometimes, or the valve can grab the guide. People set up guides bad all the time. And even a properly set up guide, if a guide's set up improperly, the valve, when it gets hot, expands, closes up that clearance between the valve guide and the valve stem, and you've heard of valve bind. It binds up in there. It gets hot, and they can stick and sometimes destroy an engine. But another thing that can happen is, just before they completely stick and seize, they can just kind of rub real hard to the point where it could seize. But right before it seizes, it's rubbing really hard. And while it's rubbing, it can pull that guide down out of the head. And, it'll pull it out this way, out the face of the head, up behind the valve. And when it does that and it comes through, now the valve will hit it and it won't be able to retract, and the motor will blow. So that's bad. So these guides have a head on them. And give me a second. Let me grab a 60-pound. Let me grab a 37 and a 60, since they're basically the same spring. And I'll show you another benefit. Hold on. Alright, so I went and grabbed a couple of the springs. And what we have here is the dual coil. So you have the outer coil, and you have the inner coil that sits inside the outer coil. These two work together to make a 60-pound spring. Now the outer coil, separate, is basically a red stripe 37 that I sell. And that'll sit just fine. When you cut the spring pockets, the cutter cuts, you see where there's this little triangle here, and then you see the spring seat. Well, with the wider springs, the cutter actually opens it up, so it makes it wider. Normally this spring would sit down and sit basically where this triangle is. It would sit up on a lip. So the spring seat cutter cuts that wider. Another thing the spring seat cutter does is also cuts on so it cuts down and around, but it also cuts on the inside, and it cuts the guide boss, and it makes it smaller. just by a fraction of an inch. And that smaller is great because now with this guide that I've developed, it locates that inner coil spring where there's no, it's tight on there. You could see it here, click on. Sometimes it is a little tight and you got to kind of press it on, which is fine. That's kind of what you want it to do. You want it to locate. You could see, you don't hear any wiggling. It locates those springs really nicely. And when that spring is located, you don't get the resonances. Those spring resonances that can build up from vibrating. If all of a sudden, the crank has a resonance, the flywheel has a resonance, the block itself starts vibrating, so it has a resonance, the piston creates a resonance, and the springs are trying to keep all that under control. The cam is just trying to get that lifter, get that push rod, get all of that valve train to get off of it. It's just flipping it up like a paddle ball flipper. And it's just trying to get that lifter, get up off me, get up off me. The only thing that's holding that entire valve train, pushing up on the valve, pushing down on the rocker arm, pushing down on the push rod, and holding that lifter to the cam is those springs. So, people will say, oh, well, I read the cam card and it says it only needs, 36-pound springs. Well, that cam card, whatever cam you're talking about, it's talking about stock valves. So once you go to a heavy valve, or a big valve rather, you're going to need a heavy spring. If you go with a big valve, it's got more mass than a stock valve. A little 25 millimeter intake or a 27 millimeter intake has nothing on, a 3228 setup. The 32 valve and, the 3228, so most common is like plus 130 length or plus 230 length or plus 150 length. So they're longer and bigger, which means you need more spring to control everything, to keep that lifter glued to that camshaft lobe. And, the dual coil springs, I love. The opposite thinking might be, well, it's harder to move that spring because it's heavier. And yeah, it is. But, in my mind, I would rather know my valve is not floating and possibly lose just a touch of horsepower. Something like a point. Not like a 1 horsepower, not like a tenth, but like, say, 100th of a horsepower. If you lose, 9 times out of 10, you'll gain horsepower with the heavier springs, and that's why I recommend them, because they allow you to turn more RPM. If you're floating a valve, that's where the engine stops revving. If you put in my camshaft, or I can't speak for other people's camshafts, but if you put in my camshaft and you're not running the right spring, I recommend dual coil springs, on any race cam, whether it's mine or anybody's. That's what I would recommend you. But if you're running some lazy spring, like a 22, I don't even know the numbers, I don't even stock those. The lowest spring I stock is a 37. So when guys call me talking about 18 pounds or 20 something pounds, I don't even speak that language anymore. I only speak racing. If it's not making power, I don't know anything about it. So, you want the dual coil springs. They're available on the site. They're available on eBay. This isn't a sales ad for anything. Really what I just wanted to show you was these cool new guides. I do sell those separate on the website, and I think I got them listed on eBay. But this is basically just, and I put these in all of my heads now. The $3.99 heads come with those guides. This is a $3.99 head right here. This is how it goes out to the customer. It's beautiful. It's the best head that you can make these days. It's coming out flawless in every single way. Whatever these ports look like, If the exhaust port looks small, if the intake port looks big, well, that's the way it should look. If you think it should look a different way, take a close look, because that's how it should look. It's not a guess. It's the best on the dyno. It's the best on the flow bench. It's the best with the equipment that's used to measure these outcomes and horsepowers and everything. This is the best. So, you know, if you think it should be a different way, there's other ways to do things. Everybody's got a way to get where they're going, but some ways are just better than others. So this is a great setup. They're all coming with those custom guides now. Things just keep getting more and more refined. The refinement of these cylinder heads just keeps getting more refined. And I mean, you know, it's just from, you know, it's not like I've done one before. You know, guys will call, they think they're a professional engine builder. Well, they built an engine before, and they've read some things, and they're calling, and I could tell all they've been doing is reading forums, because they got a flat slide Mikuni carburetor, and they're so proud of that. Well, that carburetor was designed in 1960. You know, I think we can do better than that, guys. Think about it. These forums are just crazy. But yeah, I mean, from somebody that's not just built one or two of these things, I do this every day. You know, I you know, 4 or 5 heads a day over the course of years, and you know, it's the repetitive muscle memory. You know, you bought one tool, great, you got a tool. Well, I've bought so many burrs and ground them down to nothing, and then through buying new burrs, you find out which burrs are better, and you just refine the entire process. So this is engineering at its finest, guys. I'm Paul from Paul's Karts. If you need anything under the sun, big blocks, small blocks, stuff you can't find anywhere, stuff made out of titanium, stuff with my name on it, my valve covers, hot coils, the real deal. paulskarts.com. You could also check it out on eBay if you like to. I used to send people there, but now go to the site. Everything that's on eBay is now cheaper on the site. I specifically search around every big vendor and sell my stuff for at least $1 less, because you know how it is. You're on eBay, you see something for $1.99, you see something for $1.90, you know, $198.99, and you get the one for a penny cheaper. Same stuff or better. Everything I buy is bought right. It ain't like this GPS place, I'm not gonna say their name, where they buy stuff made in China and put American made stickers on the stuff. But you know, we're buying the real stuff. You're getting solid stainless with my stainless. You know, everything is just a notch better, their price or less, or completely customized beyond recognition. So Paul from Paul's Karts. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check out the website. Until next time, take it easy.